Joining us now in the Bloomberg Google Hangout at the U.S. Africa Business Forum is Secretary Anthony Foxx of the Transportation Department. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
You have recently had 6 transportation ministers from African countries out to a forum in Chicago, I think just within the past week. Yeah. Can you talk to me a little bit about what some of the infrastructure challenges are in Africa and what the U.S. Department of Transportation can do to help with those and to help with U.S. businesses that want to invest in Africa but face some transportation challenges?
Sure. The challenges are many. One of the challenges in some countries is just getting basic infrastructure in place. Road systems, rail systems, even civil aviation systems that we take for granted in the U.S. are still being established in some parts of Africa. But in addition to that, there's also the challenge of interconnectivity between countries in Africa. And in fact, some folks were telling me that it can be cheaper to send goods from one part of Africa to China and have those goods come back as finished products than it would be to ship them even within the continent. And that just shouldn't be. And so there's a lot of opportunity to fix that. At the same time, we at USDOT are going to work with African countries on several fronts. We have ongoing knowledge transfers that we're doing in civil aviation, for instance, to help build up national aviation systems. And we want to expand that to rail, which we hear a lot of interest in, as well as highway technology and infrastructure, and even safety regimes. Our National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is the top of the list in the world on performance of safety. And so we can provide knowledge transfers, and we can also work as a bit of a chamber of commerce for U.S. industries that provide infrastructure support to help U.S. businesses as well as to help build up the infrastructure of Africa.
And you find a lot of eagerness, willingness from African countries to get, and tell me which countries in particular you are getting the eagerness from to get some American know-how, to get American businesses in there and to do the things in their countries that make it easier for American businesses to invest there?
Yeah, I mean, so far I've probably met with 10 or 12 countries, and all of them are interested in the knowledge transfer components. It's actually surprising to see how much U.S. African business there already is. I was with the CEO of Ethiopian Airlines, who's just purchased 10 new Boeing 787s, and they're waiting on the 10th to show up in the next few weeks. And so building on those relationships and creating more opportunities for U.S. businesses can also help Africa.
And is that, I mean, that's interesting that you bring up the Boeing planes being bought, because it seems like that's an area where there's so many pieces of the U.S. government that are involved in terms of
yes.
Aviation. You've got the Transportation Department, the State Department can be involved in those discussions. You've got the Ex-Im Bank, which has been so controversial lately. Why are planes such a big deal? Why is the financing of airplanes such a big deal to the American economy and to investors abroad?
I wouldn't even begin to estimate the number of U.S. workers that go into building something like a 787, but I would put it in the thousands of people. And you think about all the components that go into a product like that, it's a huge job creator. And the reason why airplanes are such a big deal is because airplanes are actually our #1 export. That's the #1 thing on a dollar value basis that we're exporting around the world. And so when we sell 10 787s or what have you, that's creating a huge opportunity for job creation here in the U.S.
And I won't say when you were a young man, because I think you still are a young man, but when you were a young man, you spent some, I will say it, I guess, you spent some time in South Africa, right?
I did.
Have you had a chance to go back recently? What's your perception of the changing face of South Africa in general, and,
Sure.
and if you've got any other sense of the continent?
Yeah, when I was in South Africa as a college kid, the apartheid had been lifted, but they hadn't transitioned into what they now have, a democratic government in which there's inclusive participation in elections. So that's been a great thing to see happen from afar. I've not been back, and one of the things I'm hoping to do on the heels of this summit is to plan a mission, a transportation mission that would include components of knowledge transfer as well as business opportunity for U.S. firms in the next year, first quarter next year.
Is that specific to South Africa, or you want to go around Africa?
No, want to see other parts of Africa as well, and go where we're already doing things as USDOT and to help leverage what we're already doing.
So you said that's one of the things you want to do. That's something you're going to do, right?
Yeah, want to do becomes going to do, yeah.
What do you hope to get out of the summit here this week? Obviously, a lot of talk about U.S. investment in Africa. The president announcing $14 billion. We just had Steve Schwartzman of Blackstone and Aliko Dangote of Dangote Industries announcing a $5 billion investment in power. What do you think is the best thing that could come out of this summit?
You know, in my entire lifetime, most of the conversation about Africa has been, in the U.S. at least, focused on aid. You know, what can we do for Africa? Now the conversation is transitioning to what can we do with Africa? You know, the idea that we can forge economic connections that strengthen both sides, I think, is a big psychological transition for both Africa as well as the U.S. And I think this summit's going to be an inflection point in that change of our mentality about Africa.
This is an important moment in President Obama's legacy, and if so, where do you put it in that 8-year tenure?
Yeah, I think it is a huge statement by the president to focus time and attention on this, because, you know, quite frankly, Africa is a part of the world that is rich with opportunity, and for this president to recognize that we can forge economic connections with Africa, that they can strengthen both Africa as well as the U.S., and that we can forge strategic partnerships with nations in Africa, I think is pretty forward thinking, because I see Africa having a long run of growth, and for us to be playing a role there is very important, because we have other competitors around the world, China, India, others that are already in Africa doing a lot of work, and the U.S. should be part of that mix as well.
Secretary Foxx, thank you so much for joining us at the Bloomberg Google Hangout. We'll be right back from the U.S. Africa Business Forum here at the Mandarin Hotel in Washington, D.C.